In our previous videos in this money series, we cracked the code on Bitcoin's inception, navigated the dominance of the US dollar, and unpacked the ripple effects of economic turbulence. Now in part 4 of the series, we return to the future of money and the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. This episode unravels the whys and how these groundbreaking digital innovations are rewriting the rules of the economy, finance, investments, and the monetary system, potentially reshaping the political structures and challenging the roles of sovereign states, thereby creating a radical new macrocosm. So far, we've traced the evolution of the global, economic, political, and social landscapes over the past 80 plus years, shaped by factors such as wars, seismic demographic shifts, natural disasters and pandemics, evolving world orders and globalization, and oscillation between inflation, recession, and the boom-bust cycles resulting from both the intended and unintended consequences of monetary and fiscal policies. Most governments have resorted to printing money, increasing national debt, and thereby debasing currencies. This has benefited asset holders whilst eroding wage earners' purchasing power, which led to a widening inequality, fueling populism and social-economic fractures.
Is that tax money that the Fed is spending?
It's not tax money. The banks have accounts with the Fed, much the same way that you have an account in a commercial bank. So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
Our money is broken, and the financial system is rigged to benefit those at the top at the expense of those at the bottom. So let's talk about why. We saw stimulus by both the central bank in the form of monetary policy and directly by Congress in the form of fiscal policy. Many people are not getting pay raises that keep pace with all the new money being created. And much of that new money flows into assets like real estate and stocks. So we see asset inflation, and assets are disproportionately owned by the wealthy. Expanding the money supply results in decreasing purchasing power and creates a wider and wider wealth gap among society.
You can create dollars in a Eurodollar system. You can just create them out of thin air by being a bank. And so what happens is there is this huge increase in money that happens. But we as people don't generally get it. Sure, your mortgage rate may fall a bit, but really it's this debasement effect that happens that's more insidious that we don't see and don't really understand. Asset prices take off, but our earnings don't. So therefore, we get poorer in terms of the assets we can buy. And an asset is just future deferred consumption.
In presenting these observations, my aim is definitely not to minimize the monumental challenges confronting economic and political leaders today. The crafting effective solutions to these complex issues is a formidable task that has often eluded even the experts. With ever-expanding balance sheets and inherited legacies, I guess they often find themselves with little choice but to postpone tough decisions, and as a result, continually kicking the proverbial can down the road. The reliance on short-term fixes like printing money for rescues and bailouts has led to alarming inflated national debt. As of September 2024, the US national debt has passed $35 trillion, and the global level amounted to over $315 trillion. However, somehow this time feels different. Now, with debt levels surpassing GDP in many countries, we are potentially facing an existential crisis. Simultaneously, AI and blockchain and other emerging technologies are advancing at a breakneck pace and adding layers of complexity and uncertainty to the situation. Will traditional policies still be effective? As the largest workforce cohort, the boomers, that's my generation, are progressively retiring, questions arise about whether the younger generation can match their productivity or secure jobs in an era dominated by AI's potential capabilities. We must shift from a linear perspective and adapt by increasing our understanding and knowledge of these technologies.
Because the internet was the rails that already exists, the adoption of a new technology that uses those rails is faster, and it's actually twice the speed of the internet. It's driven the fastest appreciation asset of all time. The compounded annual returns of Bitcoin is about 150% a year, even with 80% drawdowns 4 times in the middle of it. It's going to take over all of our lives in ways we don't really understand. It's not just going to be about investing in cryptocurrencies, it's just going to be the underlying rails of transactions.
Bitcoin is a form of digital property and the most powerful savings technology in the world. It allows you to save your hard-earned money and plan for your future. Unlike the money in our current system, Bitcoin is immune to manipulation, inflation, and confiscation. So let's talk about what makes a good money. For example, a good money should be scarce. It should be hard to create more of it. Divisible. It should be easy to divide it into smaller units and transact with ease. Portable. It should be easy to take with you or send it to whoever you want. Durable. It should not be perishable or easily destroyed. Verifiable. It should be easy to verify as genuine and authentic, making it easier to use and trade. Established history. The longer it has been valued by society, the better the good works as a store of value. Resistant to censorship. If you can control it and transact without asking permission, that's clearly better than a money where you must first ask permission from a controlling authority. Now think about the fiat money you use today. How does it compare to this list of qualities? Here's a side-by-side comparison of how the most popular forms of money stack up. Gold is too slow and too costly to send around the world, and fiat currencies are simply devaluing too quickly to be good money. Bitcoin is superior in many ways, but much of the world simply doesn't understand this new technology yet, and the process of monetization takes time. After over a decade of historical price action, it is clear that the adoption of Bitcoin is only growing stronger.
Can you maybe linger on this point? What do you find appealing about Bitcoin, about digital currency? Where do you see it going in the next 10, 20 years? And what are some of the challenges with respect to Square, but also just bigger for our globally, for our world, for the way we think about money?
I think the most beautiful thing about it is there's no one person setting the direction. And there's no one person on the other side that can stop it. So we have something that is pretty organic in nature and very principled in its original design. I think the Bitcoin white paper is one of the most seminal works of computer science in the last 20, 30 years.
Well, a new report out today points to the growing popularity of cryptocurrency, so much so that many investors believe it may replace traditional avenues of investing. Let's bring in Yahoo Finance's Alexandra Semenova, who's here with me at the desk. So what does the data say?
Well, Akiko, yet another survey out underscoring the institutional momentum of crypto. About 80% of institutional investors reporting that they believe crypto will replace traditional asset classes in the next decade. A really big deal here when you think about the responses that would come of this about a year ago. Sentiment is really changing around crypto among smart money, but even more significant here is that 70% of institutional investors said that they believe crypto is a trustworthy investment, and 68% are recommending crypto as part of an investment strategy. So pretty stunning how it's come to, the center of mainstream investing in such a short period of time.
What are some of the big name investors that are either getting into the space now or increasing their exposure to crypto?
Yeah, well, beyond these surveys, we're seeing anecdotal evidence of this too very much. Just the other day, we had news that Fidelity was now allowing, clients to invest in crypto as part of their 401k plans, which is a huge deal. In September of 2021, we had the Fairfax County retirement system say that they're going to make an allocation to crypto, and everyone kind of gawked at that, thinking that it was such a huge deal to be investing retirement assets into such a skeptical asset class, into such a risky asset class.
The institutional adoption is happening now. The state of Wisconsin announced, we expect other pension funds to announce, and of course, Bitcoin now has the regulatory approval, and I think that was the rate limiting step for a lot of these large scale institutions. And
Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy Executive Chairman, you never stop adding to the position of your company.
It's been a great journey since August 10th of 2020. MicroStrategy has bought about $8.3 billion worth of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's up 44% a year on average since then. The S&P is up 12%. And since we levered it, we're up 825%. The number one performing stock in the S&P is NVIDIA, up 821% as of Friday. So we beat every single company in the S&P index using Bitcoin strategy.
As you know, I was a skeptic. Yes, I was a proud skeptic. And I studied it, learned about it, and I came away saying, okay, my opinion 5 years ago was wrong. Here's my opinion today. This is what I believe in today. I believe the opportunity today. I believe Bitcoin is legitimate. I'm not trying to say there's not misuses like everything else, but it is a legitimate financial instrument. It is an instrument when you believe that countries are debasing their currency, by excess. I believe we have countries where you're frightened of your everyday existence, and if you have an opportunity to invest in something that is outside your country's control, then you can have more financial control. And so I'm a major believer that there is a role for Bitcoin in portfolios. I believe you're going to see that as one of the asset classes that we all look at. I look at it as digital gold, as I said before.
Using Bitcoin to buy clothes, snacks, even the daily newspaper, instead of US dollars, is now an option to the people in El Salvador, as the country becomes the first in the world to adopt the volatile crypto as its national currency.
And now in South America, El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele has proposed establishing a Bitcoin bank in the country. Once approved, the private investment bank would offer Bitcoin investors more financial services than conventional banks. The proposal comes just 2 weeks after Bukele was sworn in for his second presidential term following a landslide election victory. According to World Bank data, El Salvador's GDP was over $32 billion in 2022, a jump of over 30% since Bukele first took office in June of 2019. And if the GDP reaches over $300 billion, it would put El Salvador on par with Romania, Chile, and the Czech Republic.
We kick off today's program with matters crypto. After El Salvador, the Central African Republic has become the second nation in the world and the first in Africa to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. Now, President Faustin Archange Touadéra signed the bill into law after it was unanimously passed by the National Assembly. Other than making Bitcoin legal tender alongside the existing CFA franc, the legislation also establishes a legal and regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies. But one certainly struggles to see how this move will be beneficial to the country going forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Uche. I think overall, it's a head scratcher, right? Low internet penetration in CAR as well. But if you read the backstory, I think they're saying this is a way to get themselves off the SEPA. Because the SEPA is tied to the euro, it's expensive, right? So they can't print or do deficit financing. So probably this is a way to introduce competition.
Asia, Bhutan, the Himalayan kingdom, known for prioritizing happiness over wealth, has quietly emerged as a major player in the cryptocurrency world. With $780 million worth of Bitcoin, which is nearly a third of its GDP, Bhutan has become the fourth largest government holder of Bitcoin.
For a country with a GDP of just under $3 billion, this is a staggering sum, making Bhutan the fourth largest government holder of Bitcoin globally. The Himalayan kingdom is only behind the United States, China, and the United Kingdom as it overtook El Salvador, Ukraine, and Germany. Bhutan took a more proactive approach by investing directly in Bitcoin mining. Mining Bitcoin involves solving complex mathematical problems to validate transactions on the blockchain, a process that consumes significant energy but offers lucrative rewards in Bitcoin currency. Bhutan's decision to mine Bitcoin rather than purchase it directly aligns with its broader strategy to diversify revenue streams. The country's Bitcoin mining activities have been fueled by its abundant hydropower resources, making Bhutan one of the most eco-friendly crypto miners in the world.
Switzerland, with its trade routes across the Alpine Mountains, has long been a global economic hub. Today, it's an attractive location for cryptocurrencies and digital tokens. One reason is the local tax system, which makes Switzerland attractive for rich investors on the lookout for the next big thing. Another reason is local skills. In towns like Zug, there are a host of IT specialists, as well as a network of lawyers and financiers adept in the new technologies. But one of the biggest draws is that Swiss politicians have welcomed crypto pioneers. FINMA, the Swiss financial supervisor, has set out clear guidelines for digital coin offerings. The government working group will draw up broader plans for developing the blockchain technology behind cryptocurrencies. A big effort has been made to stop anonymous digital systems being used by criminals or for money laundering. But if cryptocurrencies are the future, Switzerland will be ready.
Why are we at Jan 3 working with nation states to implement Bitcoin strategies when you don't want them to have it? But first, a nation state adopting Bitcoin is literally the separation of money and state. It's a voluntary separation. And I think that is a good path to pursue and to advocate for. It reduces the power of the state. It separates the ability to print money out of thin air from the state by them adopting Bitcoin.
For the first time, Vice President Kamala Harris has given clearer insight into her view on digital assets. At a New York City fundraiser yesterday, she vowed to, quote, encourage innovative technologies like AI and digital assets while protecting our consumers and investors. Now, this could signal a warming attitude toward the industry that has faced scrutiny over the years from the Biden administration. Harris went on to say that her White House would, quote, create a stable business environment with consistent and transparent rules of the road. This acknowledgement from the Democratic nominee was long awaited by the industry.
So I will recommit the nation to global leadership in the sectors that will define the next century. We will invest in biomanufacturing and aerospace, remain dominant in AI and quantum computing, blockchain, and other emerging technologies.
Former President Donald Trump has been openly courting the digital asset space and has the backing of industry veterans like the Winklevoss twins.
The problems created by fiat currency can be fixed by Bitcoin, leading us toward a bright orange future. Instead of having so many people struggling to get by because their salaries aren't keeping pace with the cost of living, Bitcoin empowers us to benefit from increased purchasing power over time. Right now, society is divided and people are fighting over control. This creates nasty and divisive politics because people begin to vent their frustrations about feeling there's no way to catch up in the system. People start to blame one party or another, one group of people or another. Bitcoin offers the opportunity for a reverse wealth transfer, one that benefits the working class and helps humanity seize on the advantages of operating with an upgraded monetary system based on math, not manipulation. And millions of people around the world, and soon billions, are turning to Bitcoin. It's like digital gold that you can utilize as a savings vehicle for the long term, while also serving as a decentralized peer-to-peer payment network. Is money reimagined for the digital age. And once we see what makes good money, we can understand why Bitcoin is better money.
Now, as we look to the future, we consider whether Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies will be the solutions we seek. Now, this technology and innovation promise to enhance financial inclusivity and address wealth disparities by decentralizing access to capital. For the younger generation and those nations and countries ravaged by hyperinflation, cryptocurrencies represent not just a shift away from the broken traditional systems that have failed them, but also a potential escape from poverty. Now, this move to a more open and fair system democratizes investment opportunities, allowing anyone to participate in the global economy and securing financial freedom. Now, digital assets like cryptocurrencies could narrow the inequitable gaps within and between nations, redefining wealth distribution and fostering a new and more hopeful, sustainable future.